Ladies and gentlemen, may I ask you to please take your seats because we want to get started with our next session and with our keynote speaker. So please be so kind as to take your seats, Excellencies and ladies and gentlemen. Okay, those still at the door, if you'd be so kind as to come all the way in and find a seat. We have quite a few seats up here in the front, so if you don't find a seat back there, please do join us here in front. May I ask everyone to please take your seats now. Thank you very much. Forgot I didn't have a headset. I'll stay right here. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back, and I hope that everybody had good parallel sessions and a good opportunity to continue the very interesting discussions we were having before the lunch break. We had a great parallel session on road safety, but no worries, if you couldn't be with us at that, we will be returning to the subject tomorrow in Plenary 5, so you can join us then. And of course, nobody can follow all of the events or all of the parallel sessions here at TT 2018, but the great thing is you can find more information online at the website www.transformingtransportation.org, and of course you can also find us on social media. That's hashtag TTDC18, so please do tweet if you hear something that you think you'd like others to know about. Ladies and gentlemen, as we discussed in the opening session this morning, the drive to transform mobility is absolutely crucial to fulfilling the larger climate and sustainable development goals that the countries of the world signed up to just a little over 2 years ago. International organizations such as our hosts here at the conference are playing a key role in building coalitions and in catalyzing change to make the transformation of sustainable mobility in that direction possible. And here to tell us more about the World Bank's vision and its strategy is an international leader who's widely respected for her efforts to mobilize the international community to find innovative solutions to very complex challenges. She was formerly EU Commission Vice President. She also co-chaired the United Nations Secretary General's high-level panel on humanitarian financing. Please welcome World Bank CEO Kristalina Georgieva.
Thank you very much for this very flattering introduction, and in particular for pronouncing my last name properly. Not that I don't respond when people say Miss Georgieva. I do, but for me it is an exciting opportunity to step in this room, because what I know is that very senior policymakers, our experts from the bank, experts from other organizations have been putting transport on a much more sustainable path. And the 4 terms that have penetrated in everybody's brain: accessible, efficient, safe, and green. This is the product of your work. The good news is that the world has embraced future for transport that fits these 4 criteria. The not so good news is that we are yet to find a country that has successfully achieved all 4 of them to the fullest. So what brings us here is a lot of work to be done. I am also excited because this is a partnership with the World Resources Institute, 14 years old. I know that Andrew Steer was here in the morning, somebody who has been an incredible advocate for sustainable green development, but also somebody who, like people in this room, is concentrated not just on defining what the problem is, but on figuring out a solution to the problem. And for us at the World Bank, this is what we embrace wholeheartedly, that transport is critical for development, and in our work, we can make progress go faster and further. Let me give you a couple of impressions from my travels over this year. One that really is embedded in my brain is a visit to Mumbai, where I took the local train, the ladies' compartment in the train. To give you a perspective, travels on this train line on a daily basis number some 8 million passengers. This is about 700,000 more than the total population of my home country. And it is absolutely paramount for the train service to be not only reliable, but also to be safe and secure, in particular for women. So I listened to women in this compartment, and basically the story was very straightforward. If there was not that project supported by the World Bank and this train service that takes into account our demand for safety, we would not be going to work, we would not be going to school, we would be staying home. For India to tap into the potential of women is critical for growth rates to go up, to go higher. In Egypt, how many of you have been to Cairo? I'm going to skip Egypt, it's so very clear. But just to give you a feel for the magnitude of what congestion means, our colleagues have calculated that it is 3% of GDP per year loss that is so dramatic for the country. And on top of it, you have the impact of air pollution on health, especially health of children. A very difficult challenge, and it requires political will, and now we see that Egypt is determined to muster this will. We are there for them. Our obsession with climate change is for a reason. We got recently in Bonn, during the COP23, 15,000 scientists telling us we are running out of time. Actually, it is very easy to recognize that on any place on the planet, because extreme weather events hit everywhere. Just now in the United States, in California, mudslides are causing loss of life and livelihoods. And we know that if we are to do the right thing, to have sustainable infrastructure, one that is not going to cause us regrets, over the next 15 years, $90 trillion have to be invested in infrastructure the right way. And that just the magnitude of this challenge is so overwhelming. And if you don't do that, the consequences are going to be dire. So we have to be quite honest with ourselves that while there is a lot of good work done, neither the scale nor the speed of transformation should satisfy us. For many people, transport is mostly about access. When you don't have a road that allows you to travel to markets or to travel to cities, the other components, the climate proofing, the safety and security, they become totally abstract. So for us, yes, work on transport in areas where it is still simply lacking. Not that it is not safe, it's not there. This, of course, is a priority. We have 1 billion people, this is 1/3 of the global rural population that lacks that access. And we also recognize that in many, many places where roads are, where transport is available, roads are there, rails is there, it is so poorly maintained that the cost or restrictions to trade to the local economies is just mind-boggling. And by the way, this is not just in poor country. Across the world, I was at a meeting on the Western Balkans recently, happens to be my part of the world. And what is so mind-boggling is the lack of connectivity among countries that are this big on a small place, and yet for goods and people to travel, the obstacles are just unbelievable. It is easier to buy goods from and get them transported to, say, Skopje from Germany than from Bulgaria, and we're right next door. So that recognition that access is still a major problem is something that we at the bank put front and center. And then we add to it 3 dimensions that are critical. One is safety. How many of you have been either in an accident or have been affected, your families have been affected by a road accident? How many of you? Well, just in this room, I was hit by a car when I was 25, pregnant, in 7th month pregnant. Luckily, I survived, and my daughter is fantastic. But I was hit because the street was dark, there was no lighting, and the drivers couldn't care less that there was a marked crossing path. So we have that notion of safety and security is something that we have to take extremely seriously. Laura Tuck, our vice president, is known for many of her qualities, and rightly so. One of those is that she would step in a car, and if there is anybody in this car that hasn't put a belt, she would scream, "Put your belt on." But that is, in a sense, our duty to make sure that we think of safety, that we integrate safety in everything we do and we think of on transport. So how is it, what do we do at the bank? First, we have prioritized transport as an engagement point with countries, municipalities, ministries of finance, financial decision makers, and of course, in our interaction with private sector. We have been the front runner on global mobility. We published a report 2017. This is our first flagship report on Sustainable Mobility for All initiative. And what we do in this report is to bring credible data on a country-by-country basis. And when we work with countries to go down to cities, municipalities, regions, because we cannot really move without baseline where we are and without ability to prioritize investments in these goals of low carbon, safe, equitable, efficient transport. We see, by the way, tremendous progress in some of the poorest countries. We have been looking at, for example, Kenya and Uganda, improving efficiency of their transport system extremely quickly over a relatively short period of time. We recognize that transforming transport is not an easy thing. I look around the room, and it is impressive, so many young people. But if we are to be honest, mostly when you go in transport ministry, you would see a lot of maturity, a lot of gray hair, very few women. So transformation is also a matter of building up enthusiasm and positive energy for working in that sector. Second, we do our part in that transformative change in three ways. We finance with a not only we put the money in, we do that in a very responsible manner. 100% of our projects already account for greenhouse gas emissions. And that helps us to meet our goal towards 28% of our lending going in climate action in projects with climate benefits by 2020. 100% of our projects have road safety considerations. 100%. And now we are extremely focused on use of new technology, intelligent systems. In the meeting on the Western Balkans, our main objective there was to turn physical queues at the borders of the countries into virtual queues, using data, satellite imaging, and the ability to process it so that can be done. We are also very keen on gender considerations. I don't know whether you have noticed, but in the days that you have here, this is a very prominent theme, and tomorrow you would have a panel on gender that is appropriately called, slightly provocatively, transport is not gender neutral. I'm going to ask my guys afterwards to tell me, is the goal to make it gender neutral? Over what period of time? But gender consideration in transport is so very critical if we are serious about women being able to participate everywhere equally in the labor force. We convene people like you, and we take this very seriously internally. We have been encouraging our staff to take public transport. We are actually funding that choice. And we are encouraging our staff to drive electric vehicles. And Laura knows what is now coming. As a proud owner of Tesla, I can tell you that it is fantastic to come in the bank after 8:30 and realize that there is no station left for me to charge my car because of the increase of electric vehicles that the bank is using. We are extremely positive on helping our staff to bike. So electric vehicle is good, but biking is even better. And I can tell you that we have been shrinking our carbon footprint as a result quite significantly. So let me say finally a couple of words about the theme of this conference, realizing sustainable mobility for all in the digital era. So here is one, since I threw at you some big numbers, let me do one more of those. 26.3 billion digital devices are expected to be in the world by 2020. That means connectivity that can so much transform everything we do, the way we live, the way we work, and of course, transform transport. Those of you who have experimented with self-driving vehicles, how many of you have done it? Self-driving. Okay, so if there are people who are really keen to experiment self-driving, give me a call, I give you my Tesla. It is actually quite an experience because it makes you realize that the future is here. And it is such a tremendous pressure factor on us to imagine what next, and then make it happen, and then make sure that the poor people on this planet are not left further behind. And this, to us in the bank, is probably the most significant challenge of embracing technology for development. Okay, so we are going to do lots of things. We will continue to invest in some more traditional projects, and of course we would invest tremendously in connectivity, transport as a way of life, of functioning. We are going to do that based on analysis and data, but here is my most important message for all of you. We will do it together. We will do it with you. No organization, no country, no institution faced with this dramatic transformation can do it on its own, but we can do it together. So, very best of luck.
Many, many thanks to you, Madame Georgieva, for those very inspiring words, and we will take the impulses that you have given us with us into our further discussions. So greatly appreciate that keynote.